First, take a cold winter's day. Then add the best chocolate you can find to a little hot milk. Then add something sweet and a little Christmas spirit. And let the magic do that thing that it does. There is for me a kind of Frank Capra moment where not only do I feel that Christmas has truly descended, but I'm really happy to go with it. I can sit down with some hot chocolate, proper hot chocolate, that's to say chocolate melted in some milk, a bit of honey, and for further insulation, some rum. And I can do a little bit of creative play with the Christmas cake. Now, don't be alarmed. One year I did actually start soaking fruits in July to make a proper Christmas cake. And I have to say, by the time Christmas came, I was so exhausted with the idea, I just couldn't even make it. So this is a compromise. You buy a cake and then stab it a few times, put some rum over, and then paint some apricot jam on top. This makes it a nice sticky surface onto which you can stick nuts and beautiful light gleaming glacé fruits. These are one of the marron glacé, really beautiful. It's snow where the sugar settles on top. You just completely cover the top. I'm not saying you should pretend you made this. I really wouldn't go in for that kind of thing. But it isn't all or nothing. You don't have to exhaust yourself. You don't have to pretend that Christmas isn't happening. This is the third way. And then at the end, just gloss it all over again with the apricot jam so it looks beautiful and gleaming. I mean, just look at this. Bejeweled with fruit. It's like Carmen Miranda's Christmas crown. The key to an enjoyable Christmas is simply not to put too much pressure on yourself. I mean, I'm all for planning ahead, as long as I don't make myself feel like I'm running some sort of military operation. The same goes with leftovers. Don't knock yourself out trying to create something bizarre and alternative out of the turkey, when, to be honest, a cold sandwich and a bowl of hot smoky chestnut soup is simple but really delicious. And I think it really helps anyway, always to cook things you feel confident about. That way you can invite, like I like to, friends round for dinner on Christmas Eve without inducing panic. But at the end of everything, I think Christmas is a time when you want to celebrate seasonal food and use what's around. And my toasted walnut and parmesan pasta is perfect for right now. Now, I like using really short, flat pastas for this, so it's thick enough to cope with this sauce, which ends up to be quite thick. It sort of doesn't run all over it, it just sort of sits on top and you have to mix it in. Okay, so the pasta's in, and the thing about the sauce is that really it takes less time to make than the pasta does to cook, which is about 10-12 minutes. So I've got a bit of stale granary bread, and I want to get 150 mils of milk over this. It sort of soaks in, and what this bread and the milk do is kind of help the nuts cohere and form a sort of sauce. Now, the walnuts. First off, they just have to be toasted in a dry pan. The Russian formalists always said that the point of literature was to make the stone stonier. Well, this makes the nuts nuttier. And you'll be able to tell when they're ready, because it's not that the colour changes so much with walnuts, but you do get this sort of sudden sense of a kind of walnutty fuzz that's hitting you about here. But these should be just about toasted now, and it really makes a difference. The flavour gets so much more intense. So I'm just going to pour them, if I can, into this blender goblet, and in with those about 25 grams of grated parmesan, or pecorino, or a mixture of both. About half a clove of garlic, I wouldn't go too heavy on that. And the bread and milk. This just gives a creaminess to the sauce. It doesn't make it taste like bread, actually. Right, and blitz. And now for the bit that brings all of this together, the oil. And not just ordinary oil, but Ligurian oil. I mean, this dish comes from Liguria anyway, but Ligurian oil is much milder than Tuscan olive oil. And that the thing about walnuts is they have a very particular and intense flavour, and that pepperiness of Tuscan oil will just sort of interfere. Right, just gonna, because I used the bowl that the nuts were in earlier. So what I want first is just to take some cooking water out, because this is a thick sauce and it needs a bit of lubrication. Voila. And drain. Well, it's not vociferously drained. I've left a bit of water on it when I just turned the pasta back in the pot, just enough to help the sauce adhere. It's con la goccia, with a drop, as it's called in Italy. In other words, you do want some water around it because it just helps the sauce amalgamate into something a bit creamier. Perfect. So I'm just going to turn this bowl. You do sometimes find this sauce with cream in it, but can you see it kind of, the combination of all the pasta and the bread and the water, it gives off its own creaminess. Just needs a couple other things. Some walnuts. It's as much about having a bit of that texture as, you know, more of the taste, and kind of remind you of what's happening. Some parsley. That's it. I mean, very little work. Very great reward. After an evening of this, I am so in need of a bit of kitchen therapy. Pomegranates are, for me, the quintessential Christmas food. We had them every year in our stockings. I remember lying in bed from about 4 in the morning onwards, winkling out those seeds with their kind of red beadiness. And what I'm going to make now is a kind of Christmas version of something called Eton Mess, which is just cream, meringue and berries. And I suppose there's only 3 ingredients. There's no cooking really. I mean, you can buy the meringues, but there's something about this sort of exquisite jewel quality of the pomegranate which makes this feel special. Oh, look at this. Beautiful. Right, I need some meringues, crumble them in, and some double cream. It's incredibly simple. You really do not much to it, as I'm not making my own meringues. It's a question of whipping up the cream. You don't want the cream to be very thick. It has to be thick enough to hold its shape, but still with a bit of soft flop about it. Perfect, that's just right. Now, these bought meringues are fine. I use a packet of 8 little meringue nests. Now, the thing is, you want to crumble them in. These crumble 7 of them in, but not too finely, otherwise it just dissolves into the cream. So, fairly large chunks. I mean, some of it will just go into dust anyway, so you have a mixture, which is perfect. Now, the pomegranates. You may be familiar with my pomegranate seeding technique. You just bash with a wooden spoon, and the seeds just scatter out. You need to use quite a few fruits, simply because cream is very rich. Not that this is a problem this time of year, or shouldn't be. And you just want to punctuate it with just the right amount of kind of fruitiness. Look at that lovely river of pink juice. So now I'll just fold loosely. You can see everything just hangs together in a kind of messy clump. And now, just pile it up. I don't know what I'd call this really. I mean, I just think of it as a sort of pomegranate meringue mountain. And then, just a few more seeds just on top of the cream and meringue, but also I let them scattered about the plate too. Just makes it come alive, doesn't it? Beautiful, very Christmassy. And then, never be too kitsch for Christmas. Little snowball. anything you can do in advance, it's going to make your life a lot more mellow in the weeks ahead. I'm not talking about, you know, horrible brisk efficiency, but just that sort of kitchen pottering to get yourself in a Christmas mood. And golden crunchy macadamia nut brittle certainly does it for me. I know that everyone feels kind of alarmed about the idea of making caramel, but it is so simple, as you'll see. And in fact, that's one of the things I like about this nut brittle, which is that without any effort, you just make something in advance, stick in a tin, and then later on, when you haven't got time, you've got some sort of wonderful treat. And to make the caramel, it's just water, 175 mils, not boiled water, and 200 grams of sugar. Just caster sugar. Just put them together, swirl it slightly. You shouldn't ever stir at this stage. Turn on the heat, and then just bring it to a boil, let it bubble away, I don't know, about 10 minutes or however long it takes for that to turn golden. I'm using macadamias out of kind of sheer seasonal extravagance and because I love their waxy richness. You need 100 grams. Now, this is not going to be pretty. It's very hard to chop nuts without spraying, roughly into quarters, but I don't mean exactly, just have a go at them. Right, my nuts are chopped, waiting, and, excuse me, how dinky is this? And then it's just a question of tipping the nuts in, make a good swirl around, and then just, look at this wonderful stuff, pour it over here. Oh, your dentist will so not approve. So what you do with this beautiful amber disc, once it's cooled, is put it in a tin, and if you really think it's going to stay there, leave it for another day when you either just break it up into kind of big fat gold shards to eat with coffee or whatever, or else just blitz it either in a processor or just with a mezzaluna so you've got wonderful sort of gold filings. In Naples at Christmas they make something called insalata di rinforzo, which means reinforcement salad, which is this wonderful jewel-bright salad of preserved vegetables, which give just the right kind of zing and crunchiness to a plate of leftovers later. And please don't be alarmed about the idea of preserving. This is an incredibly simple process, just 2 stages. First, boiling water, about 4 litres of it in a pan, and then just 1 head of cauliflower broken into florets. These need to be cooked till they're what the Americans call tender crisp, I don't know, about 8 minutes, maybe less if they're very small. Then take them out and plunge them straight into a bowl of iced water. Now pour out half the boiling water, and to that add about 750 ml of white wine vinegar, a couple of more tablespoonfuls of salt, a teaspoon of fennel seeds, and 4 peeled garlic cloves. Bring the pan back to the boil and add 300 grams of peeled pickling onions, 3 stalks of chopped celery, 1 sliced bulb of fennel, 4 peppers, seeded and chopped, and 6 whole chilies. Cook everything for about 10 minutes again until kind of tender crisp, and refresh the vegetables in the same way as you did the cauliflower. These beautiful vegetables have been drained, and now it's the final part, sort of a little saucing with some olives, a couple of tubs, green, black, mixed as you want, about 200 grams. And you know, when you've got olives and capers, you know you're in the south of Italy. And wonderful bit of vitamin C, very good for winter, parsley. Now you can eat it as a salad just as it is, in which case you need to make some dressing. Vinegar, I'm using about 50 ml here. Twice that of olive oil, this extra virgin. I wouldn't normally make a dressing so vinegary, but the whole point of this is it's kind of acerbic hit. So just whisk this together, pour over. Now the easiest way to mix all of this is just to use your hands. Oh dear, first casualty in olive. This is so addictive. It's kind of halfway between a vegetable and a pickle. I love it with just a plain roast chicken, but actually, you know, with leftovers, perfect. I mean, with anything, once you start eating this, you find you have to find an excuse every day. But the whole point of this is that you can put it in jars where it will stay, you know, throughout Christmas. And indeed, what you just do is fill glass jars with it fairly closely to the top. And all you do is add liquid, half vinegar, half oil, and just pour over, which seals all that sort of crunchy sourness. I know we don't need to pickle and preserve throughout winter anymore, but it's such a pity to lose that. I have to say I find it so reassuring just to have this stash to put by on my shelves. Now, my Rudolph pie is probably better explained as a sort of Christmas shepherd's pie. I mean, you know the basic premise of shepherd's pie, you know, minced lamb with mashed potato on top. And this, along with those wonderful porcini, has two meats, venison and pork. I partly feel, you know, one meat is a meal, two meats is a feast. Now, the base, as usual, onions and carrots. 4 of each, a lot, because this is going to feed a lot. I mean, 10 at least. And although there are a lot of ingredients, you know, this is a very simple thing to cook, a shepherd's pie. Easy to cook but not brown. Right now, these glorious porcini. These mushrooms add a woodsy depth to whatever you're cooking. You know, expensive, but you're worth it. Those in, and quick. Turn around. And now 500 grams of button mushrooms. Now there's something really strange happens here, because normally I think these kind of mushrooms taste like nothing. I mean, of nothing. But there's something that happens when you put them with porcini. It's as if they respond to the call of the wild, and all their mushroominess returns to them, and you get lots of flavour. Right, I want to brown the meat now, but there's such a huge amount that I'm going to have to get rid of the vegetable mixture first. I have to say, you kind of have to have dinner lady muscles for this. I don't, so... Oh, it's heavy. I can live with those bits at the bottom. Those beautiful colours. And the meat. Look at this venison. I mean, like something out of a still life, that ruby red. And the same amount of pork, because glorious though the venison is, it's very rich and very sweet and very lean, and so I want something with a different kind of layer of flavour and a bit of fat just to supply juiciness. That meat looks just about right. Great. Right. Back with these vegetables. Okay, so everything's combined. So I just need a bit of flour. This won't make anything taste floury. It's just because I want everything to adhere and combine together with a sort of oozy covering. What I don't want is meat with liquid floating around it. Now, just a few things. This is the mushroom soaking liquid, which smells as dark as it looks. It's incredible. Tomatoes, I've got a couple of cans. These are chopped, I mean, whatever you've got in the house. Stir these in. And now some tomato puree, diluted a little. Right, now before I get into the overflow situation, I want a bit of marsala, just because we're going for rounded woodsiness, and because some traditions can never be dispensed with, the imperins. And now it's just a question of plonking a lid partly on and letting it bubble away 40 minutes, an hour. In the meantime, I can get on with the potatoes and parsnips for the topping. We're just going to cook this now while it's still warm. 10 minutes at about a 225-degree oven should do it. After all, you're just really then crisping up the top. And now, I don't go in for piping and sort of fancy patterns, but just get a fork, draw lines over the top. And this is just because then you have lots of thinner bits of mashed potato and they crisp up when it's in the oven. And now just final touches, a few teeny bits of knobs of butter and dribble with Worcester sauce. I mean, you can just invite anyone round now and they have to feel welcome if they're presented with this incredible sort of beast of a pie right in the oven. As far as I'm concerned, leftovers are the best part of Christmas. I mean, I really don't know why everyone makes such a fuss. I love that reassuring feeling of having the house sort of filled with food, ready to eat, you know, at a moment's notice. And, you know, far from dreading that recurring turkey, I live for it. Anyway, I don't want to do a big production number every day, and the whole point of this time of year is you don't need to. I mean, there's always something there in the fridge to eat, and you just need to add one thing, I don't know, a lovely hot pudding or some sort of easy starter. And this soup is a kind of real standby of mine. It's a lentil and chestnut soup that I had for the first time at the Caprice so many years ago, and they've long stopped having it on their menu. I still make it. Start off with some vegetables mished up in the process. So there's just a leek, a carrot, an onion and a stick of celery here. And should you have any goose fat in the house, then use that to soften the vegetables in place of the oil. And then when the vegetables are softened, add the red lentils, these lovely little split ones, about 250 grams. Then stir so that they get absorbed into that soft tangle of vegetable. Then about 1.5 litres water. Some vegetable stock, I mean, use whatever stock you want. These just need to cook now, just so they begin to disintegrate into the liquid, and it gives a kind of wonderful creamy sludge. I mean, because this is a starter doesn't mean to say that I feel it's the sort of first course in a processional dinner, and I certainly don't mean that. The whole thing about soup is that it's kind of relaxing food. I mean, what I want is to be able to sort of sit on the sofa watching television with a mug of soup and just a really fat stuffed turkey sandwich. Look, the lentils have cooked into this glorious kind of yellow sludge. And you know, these lentils are the original biblical mess of pottage, just so you know. So I was going to add these chestnuts. Can you see how lovely and soft these ones are? Which means they'll dissolve so easily into the soup. Now these just need, I would say, 10 minutes at most. And they'll have softened a bit. And then they can just go straight into the blender and be blitzed into a wonderful, creamy, velvety emulsion. Now, there's enough really here for 4 to 6. But one of the wonderful things about soup is that you can just make a whole batch up and eat it yourself as and when you want. I mean, I like to make more leftovers, not fewer. So what I need now is a good retro swirl cream. Parsley, just sprinkle over, and that is it. Christmas is all about traditions. I mean, even in really small ways. I mean, for instance, I cannot have a turkey sandwich without mango chutney in it. Now, mayonnaise okay, maybe even some cold bread sauce, but it has to be this mango chutney. Exactly the same labels I remember from my childhood, even though I never eat it any other time of the year. But I think, you know, it makes sense to keep other pickles, like these hot ones, really something spicy with oomph, because cold turkey I love, but it hasn't got lots of flavour, which makes it actually a very good base for all spicy food. And I love some Indian spiced potatoes with it, panch poraloo, and I keep all the spices for this in one little handy container, although I now see it says best before March 1998. I think we can rid ourselves of that one. So much for efficiency. Now the potatoes for the panch poraloo, which is potatoes and whole spices, have been chopped and peeled, about a kilo of them, and what I want to do first is just get some oil in a non-stick pan, because then you can use less oil. And the lovely thing about this with the potatoes and whole spices basically is that it's quite a dry dish, you know, like some of those Indian ones are. Okay, I'm going to lower in potatoes. They just need to be turned in the pan and cooked for about 10 minutes, one half cooked through just as they are. Right, just going to clamp the lid on, turn the heat down a bit and leave that for about 10 minutes. These look wonderfully steamy, beginning to soften a little. Oh, slightly sticking, but nothing too terrible. So, spices. Now I'll start off with just a couple of ground ones, which aren't part of the 5 whole ones. A bit of chilli powder. About half a teaspoon here, but obviously, you know, it depends how hot you like your food. I have to say, actually, that although I love this with cold turkey, when I'm feeling a bit the worse for wear over Christmas, I like to boost the chilli factor and have this with a fried egg. It's nothing better. Okay, some turmeric, which just gives wonderful goldenness. I mean, unbeatable. About the same amount. It's going to turn the potatoes in these. Look how beautiful it is, all that golden ochre. Kind of makes me feel better for a lifetime of being chucked out of the art room at school. Okay, we're getting on to the 5 seeds. Some fresh black mustard seeds, again about half a teaspoon of everything. Lovely. Fenugreek, which gives wonderful sourness, because I think that's very important. It's not just heat that matters. Some fennel, very aromatic. Right, cumin, and then, not that I'm egocentric or anything, some Nigella seeds. Also sold Indian shops, or you know, in those packets as kalonji. Okay, so just turn the potatoes in these spices. Now these just need another 10 or 15 minutes to cook, and the same as before with the lid on. And when they're ready, it's not just they'll be gloriously golden, but they'll be imbued with really rich, kind of haunting spiciness. say, it's not just at this time of year that I have cranberries in the deep freeze. I can open this thing, I don't know, mid-July, and the place will be littered with stray frozen berries. What I need these for now, for a wonderful kind of heartening pudding, which is, well, it's like a pie made of tender sponge. A layer of sponge, cranberries, and then sponge again. Start off with 50 grams of butter. I've already melted 125 grams here, about half a packet, and that's for the sponge itself. So you can use the berries from frozen and just tip them in with a bit of a stir just to turn them in the butter. And then I need 3 spoonfuls, 1 tablespoons of sugar. It's quite a bit of sugar, but the tartness of the fruit really needs it, and that's what I love. I mean, it's a bit like, I suppose, rhubarb or bramleys. You want that tartness, but tempered with the sugar. These just need to be cooked, not until they're really mushy, but just until they begin to yield their form and ooze wonderful fruity juice. Well, while those cook down, I'm going to get on with the sponge. I mean, this is very, very easy. Because the butter's melted, really you're just going to add this to some flour and sugar and eggs, and that's it. No creaming or anything. Just going to steal a bit of the butter to grease the pan. This is what we call the dog dish at home, but I have to say it's I love it. It's very old-fashioned for pies and puddings. Okay, so 175 grams self-raising flour. The same of sugar. I got the idea for this recipe from an apple pudding that the Pudding Club do. So as you can imagine, it's not a lightweight concoction, but my feeling is these are feast days, not fast days, and you just have to do what all of us do, which is kind of overeat now and restrain yourself in January, or plan to restrain yourself in January. And then a bit of baking powder, just half a teaspoon. I mean, I know it's self-raising flour, but I want a bit of extra oomph. Okay, that's the dry ingredients done. Going to give another quick stir to the berries. Oh, they look so beautiful now. I mean, incredibly glossy and sort of ridiculously red and Christmassy. And so it's just a question of adding just a couple of eggs. It's easier just to break them in a jug first, because then you can really make this like muffins, just the wet ingredients into the dry. A bit of orange oil. If you can't get this, I mean, it's quite easy to find, but if you don't want to make an expedition, just use the zest of an orange. But this is really intensely orangey. Okay, so to the eggs, I'm just going to add the melted butter, slightly cooled now. And then, I mean, this is, very simple. As you can see, just add these wet ingredients to the dry. Lovely colour. Got a thick batter here. And this is very simple now. It's just a question of getting the pie dish and a spatula, and take half the mixture, just spread it over the bottom of the dish. It does rise as it cooks. You don't want a thick covering, and it cooks slowly, about an hour in a low oven, about gas 3, 160. Then pour on the just popped cranberries. There's too much juice, just leave it out, but a bit is fine. And then top with the rest of the batter. Now I know it looks like there's not enough to cover, and don't worry about that. Just splodge it on and sort of spatch away and cover as much as you can. It doesn't matter about the odd bit that isn't. Right, and now some flaked almonds. Maybe a few more, we can. Generous, it is Christmas after all. And just a bit of demerara sugar for crunch. And that is that. In the oven now, about an hour. inviting a table full of people round for supper on Christmas Eve might sound completely mad, but I promise you it isn't. I mean, it's a habit I've got into and I love the tradition. Apart from anything else, this dinner is everything Christmas Day isn't. It's relaxed, you don't have to spend hours in the kitchen, and you can just cook, prodding a few things while you talk to your friends, and it kind of sets you up for what is often an ordeal ahead. You know, this is just friendly. It's a way of mellowing. In essence, it's just a simple but greedy feast. Gingered prawns to start with, and then tagliata, which is a fabulous Italian way of cooking steak, and then my snowflake brownies set gloriously, seasonally alight. In fact, I don't know why people don't make brownies more often, because they are ridiculously easy to make, and I have yet to find anyone who can resist them. It's just a question of melting and stirring. First melting. It's 375 grams of unsalted butter, same amount of chocolate, really best quality dark chocolate. Put it on lowish heat. And with the melting underway, I'm going to get on with the stirring. So 6 eggs. I mean, this makes a good, fat, dense, heavy amount, so don't be alarmed at the quantities. It's not that I expect everyone to eat every last brownie tonight. It's just that, well, I think you have to have plenty. And who's going to moan about a leftover brownie? 350 grams of caster sugar, any sugar. And a good hit of pure vanilla extract. A bit of salt. That always offsets anything sweet, just a bit. Right. Stir, just to combine. And then 225 grams of plain flour. And then my snowflakes. Well, I'll come to that. Okay, this looks just about perfect. So, eggs and sugar in. Ditto flour. You can see how easy this is. And now, against this incredible sort of cocoa intensity, the squidgy interior of these brownies, we have a little snowfall. Some little teeny weeny white chocolate buttons. And these are kind of vanilla rich chunks of whiteness against all this incredible melting darkness. Irresistible. So, I'd give about 25 minutes, no longer at first, in a gas 480 oven. The thing is, you can't have a too squidgy brownie. It can go too dry, and I want these perfect. In it goes. So that's the brownies done, and while they're cooking, I'm just going to get on with the beef and the potatoes. And if it sounds daunting, the idea of sort of preparation in advance, I have to say I'm just going to do about 2 minutes work, and that means I have nothing to do later. Right, this needs to go in a marinade. The way I'm cooking this beef is in a sort of Italian-American hybrid. The cut itself is an American. I want to show it to you. It's a slice, what, about 4 or 5 centimetres thick across the top of the whole rump. I mean, look at this. Beautiful, isn't it? Real meat. And the way I'm cooking it is Italian. It's called tagliata, from tagliare, to cut. And it's just because I'm going to cook it whole on a griddle and then slice it very, very thinly across on the diagonal. And it has a marinade of some garlic, just 1 clove, just crush it, peel it, stick that back in the bag with it, some peppercorns, some olive oil. I think plastic bags are the best way to marinate it. A bit of red wine, vinegar, don't know why people use white wine such a lot, because red wine just gives such lovely flavour in salads as well as in marinades. and an onion. This just needs a little massage to help it on its way. And I mean, if you had time, you could do this 12 hours ahead and just stick it in the fridge, but if you've got half an hour, it's still worth doing. Just leave it in a cool place instead. Which I will now do and get on with the potatoes. The potatoes are going to get exactly the same kind of freezer bag and marinade treatment. That's to say, about 1 baking size one per person. Unpeeled, just chopped into little cubes in a bag with some garlic infused olive oil and some rosemary, and that's it. Right, so the potatoes are in and they'll need about an hour. The steak is marinating beautifully. Well, the brownies I can forget now until it's time to eat them. And, you know, really for the prawns, I'm not even going to start thinking about cooking them till everyone's arrived and they've had a drink, and more to the point, I've had one as well. I'm all for taking it easy in the kitchen, but I think a little work is in order up here now. And call me obvious, but you can never have too much red at Christmas. Happy Christmas!
Oh, Happy Christmas!
Olivia, I'm going to get started on the prawns. Will you make a jug or two of seasonal bries? This is my version of sea breeze, only Christmassy. Do about just under a third of Campari and just over a third of blood orange juice and cranberry juice. They're in the fridge.
Twizzle. Here everyone, here's my jug of seasonal breeze.
Oh, seasonal breeze. And what's in the seasonal breeze?
It's Campari, blood orange juice.
These ginger prawns are very, very simple. It's just a question of slicing some spring onions and some ginger and garlic into kind of spiky shards. Just let these wilt slightly. With garlic, I think it's always better putting it in the pan when the oil is cold and heating up, otherwise they'll just brown straight away and taste a bit acrid. Right, so I think this is a 2-spatula job. You can smell the ginger, I mean, the minute it hits the pan. And then just in with these wonderful, plump, juicy prawns. Turn them in this aromatic kind of wonderful oil, and you clamp the lid on for a bit and let them cook. And really, these are quite big, so this lid needs to be on for about 5 minutes. Now you can see, well, that mottled grey has turned to that incredible coral pink. Give another quick turn, and now just a kind of splosh of dry sherry. And if you had rice wine to hand, use it. Sherry just feels very Christmassy. That's perfect now. You know, the prawns have to just tender, cook through, but wonderfully fleshy. Shake them into a bowl. Take to the table and eat with really disgustingly large hunks of bread.
moist just now?
Not quite so slimy or silvery.
Am I the only one eating bread? Yes.
It would have been so. What do you think of a prawn on Christmas Eve? Very good.
Right, we're on the home run. All that needs to be done now is to grill this now marinated steak. Hard to say for how long. I like it about 5 minutes on one side and then 2 minutes, but then I like this very underdone. So on there. So while that's cooking, I'm just going to throw some rocket artlessly on this plate. And I know that food fashion victims think that rocket is, just terribly classy, but there is a reason why you eat rocket with tagliatelle, and it's because the pepperiness is so right for that wonderful savouriness of the beef. Just move it a tea light or two, could you?
How do you get the potatoes so crispy?
Just cook them for a long time.